So we all sort of fanned out. I went out to attorneys that I knew from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Frank Millard, the last Republican Attorney General, was Flint. I talked with him. I happen to know there was a fellow there by the name of Kent Lundgren, later served as, well, Kent had been state commander of the American Legion. My mother was very active. She was state president of the American Legion Auxiliary in 1940, so he knew her. And we went out. Don Seifert, former mayor, he went out to contact mayors and municipal league people. Pugsley went after the other 5 circuit judges. Steve went for, Walt DeVries came around. He was supporting Romney. He said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, we're going to move, not knowing. And we went from like 41 to 42. Well, now we can smell it. So we really went out and pushed. I think it was on the 3rd, maybe the 4th. Steve got the magic number of 50. Well, the others, Hanna gets up, make it unanimous. Pollock, Hutchinson, reluctantly Romney, very reluctantly. So now Steve is it. Well, we've agreed ahead of time we're going to divide the committees to 2-to-1 Republican, give the Democrats a vice chairman, give the Democrats a vice president. They were meeting at the Kellogg Center. We were downtown. Well, it's getting later in the afternoon, so Steve Nesbitt offers a vice presidency to Hutchinson, and he says, yeah. He looked around, he couldn't find George Romney, and he saw me. He said, Bob, will you go find George Romney and ask him if I tell him I would like him to be a vice president, will he take it? I said, sure. But I couldn't find it, but I found Art Elliott, who was from Oakland, Republican county chairman. I said, where's Romney? Oh, he says he's in there in an office talking. Well, I later found out he was talking with Van Dusen. It could be Martin. I said, why? I said, well, Nesbitt wants him to offer him the vice presidency and wants to know if he'd take it. Oh, Art said, yeah, and Art goes in the office. God, he's in there and in there and there. Comes back out. I said, well, what's the answer? He said, I couldn't get an answer. He'd think about it. I go back to Nesbitt. They said, Steve said, what did he say? I said, I couldn't get an answer. He didn't say anything. He's thinking about it. Well, now we're agitating to go out to Kellogg Center. Steve was not, he was a very, but we were getting a little, we've been all day Saturday.
A little perturbed.
And, well, we're getting a little anxious. He said, you go back and tell him he's got 1 minute. Or it's going to somebody else. Well, it was probably go to John Hanna, you see. Steve was trying to get the conservative group and the moderate group to put him in it. I went back, Art in and out, yeah, he'll take it. I found out later that Romney was harboring some sort of an idea, coalition with the Democrats. And he had worked on it, Joyce. And to their credit, I think people like Dick Van Dusen, who later served him as undersecretary, and John Martin said, you can't do that. No. We were elected partisan, the caucus has spoken. So he takes it. George McPherson puts together a committee to go meet with the Democrats. I think he conferred with Steve. And lo and behold, one of the names he mentioned is Bob Danhof. Why? Because I think I knew him and knew his father, you see. So now, and I help Steve out, and we don't, well, the convention, we have no idea what we're going to do. We haven't even organized yet. But so I have helped Steve get elected as president. And so now people come down after our first day. We convene here on Tuesday. Jim Hare reads the deal, and beforehand I get somebody says, will you help prepare a resolution? I think it's number 3 or 4. First one was for Steve. He's nominated by the Republicans, Democrats. And the second one is for Fred Chase to become our secretary. Mm-hmm. And the third one or fourth one I wrote up is to stay in Lansing, because we were autonomous. We could have gone Mackinac Island, any place we wanted. But Jim Hare had put together and gotten some money and fixed up the Civic Center. But on the come that we're got a place to go. I think Howard Stoddard may have had some of that. And under Governor Swainson. So anyway, I sponsored that. Mr. Hare, Secretary of State, came to me that same day. He said, boy, you took a load off my mind. I'm glad to get that through because I got all this time and money invested. And so that was my acquaintanceship. Well, then we all put down what type of committee we wanted. And we had divided up, and there was a committee on administration headed by Walt DeVries. Walt later served on Romney's staff. And so we do that, and Steve had total control over the appointment, just like the Speaker of the House. He had full. But we all helped him collate things because we didn't have any staff. We were hiring secretaries, stealing from the legislature. They were getting mad at us. And so so I helped Steve do that. He had an office just in the Civic Center, off the auditorium. And I was in there talking to him. It was on a Monday night. We met like at 8 o'clock, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. And so he said, no, we got 54 lawyers somewhere. Last Republican Attorney General, 6 former circuit judges, presidents of the state bar. And he said, I was in it, what we were talking about, and he said, I'm going to announce the committees tonight. And I said, and he said, I put you on judiciary, or committee on judicial branch, and which I wanted. I said, oh, thanks very much. And I always remember, because it's a real pivotal point in my political career, I sort of turned to leave, and he said, I made you chairman. I said, you made me chairman? He said, yeah. He said, I know. And I'll never forget him. He said, some of those are going to say you're too young. Maybe you don't have, but he said, I think you'll do okay. You'll do fine. Well, now I'm part of the leadership of the convention. And our committee was 21 in number. We had 14 Republicans, 7 Democrats, all lawyers but one. Sidney Barthwell was a black Democrat delegate, nice fellow. He was a pharmacist from Detroit. And we had been haggling in committee over something one day, and he walked in with the largest jar of aspirin I've ever seen. Put him right down in front of me. He said, I'm getting tired. I'm getting headaches from all you lawyers. But that allowed me politically to work with the committee. And we would meet with Steve, the committee chairman, how we coming. From that, to be quite honest with you, I got some very good press. And remember, in those days, the press was primarily written press. Television was just coming into its own. The only television interview I ever had was, I think, KAR had a fellow there, which you couldn't get back in Grand Rapids. So, but I got a great article in the Booth newspapers by Bill Culsey about my committee would finish on time. Jim Robinson, after it came out, Jim Robinson later was with the Free Press. Later was, well, he served for Soapy Williams, press agent in the '66 senatorial. Died only a couple of years ago. I hadn't said a good word about Republicans in years. Came out with something, my friend of mine called me, he said, you got Sunday, he said, you got the Free Press? I know, he said, go buy it. So I rushed over to the store, and here's an editorial on the editorial, something about when the good awards are passed out, Bob Danhof ought to get one. And so, and with all the contacts I made, why we go in, and George Romney now announces to become candidate for governor in February of '62. If George Romney had been president of the convention, he never could have run for governor. Or if he had, it would have torn the convention apart. Because from then on in, as far as the Democrat delegates were concerned, he was always suspect, looking at to be candidate for governor. Even as far as some real conservative Republicans, because they viewed Romney as sort of a moderate. Not that they didn't like him. There's a great deal about what offices are going to be appointed, what offices are going to be elected. Well, most of us were for cutting it down. The Democrats, since they held all the state elective offices, they wanted to keep electing them. Highway commissioner, state superintendent, auditor. We wanted to get rid of it. And so, but some of the conservative Republicans were with them. They didn't want to change that. So there's the great compromise between George Romney and D. Hale Bragg, and in which the upshot of it was the governor and lieutenant governor run together. That was not opposed. And then the auditor general would be appointed by the legislature. We'd have a state board of education. They would elect the state superintendent. Highway commission would replace the highway commissioner. And you would elect the Secretary of State and Attorney General. There were a number of us who said, you know, you appoint in the federal system, you appoint the Attorney General, why not here? Well, we want it independent. Why the Secretary of State, I don't know. The Secretary of State's office basically is not a policy-making office. It's like a county clerk. They collect records, driver's license, auto accident, driver's license, license plates. They run elections, I mean, but so that was the compromise that came through. Well, the press said that D. Hale stole Romney's